The truth is, most piano players are making at least one of the mistakes from this video. And this means that you are missing out on a huge opportunity to make your chords a lot easier. That's why in today's tutorial, I'm going to show you the 3 worst chord mistakes that you can make, and I'm going to show you also exactly how to fix them. The trouble is, a lot of piano players don't realize they are making these mistakes. But if you stick around until the end of this video and implement these simple solutions, your chords will sound better and you'll play them so much faster. Mistake number 1 is improper positioning. Let's look at Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major to see what I'm talking about. Now, a lot of these chords in the left hand, even here in the first measure, are really spread apart, and they also have a lot of mixes between the black keys and the white keys. And oftentimes, what I see people doing is trying to reach all of the notes of the chord with just their regular finger span, like this. Now, when you look at the anatomy of the hand, the thumb is small, the pinky is small. Usually the middle 3 fingers are a little bit longer, but with varying length. You can see on my hand that my second finger is the shortest, my third finger is the longest, and my fourth finger is like right in between those 2. So if I'm trying to play these chords and I'm just opening up my hand and trying to play those chords where my fingers naturally fall, they're going to be playing at different points of the key. Okay, and this is not ideal. Now, the other thing that happens is that people play really far back to the backside of the keys. This is also not ideal, because the way that the sound on the piano is produced, you want to be on the edge of the keys. When I'm way up here, it's really hard to control how quickly the hammer comes up to hit the string and how the sound is produced. So I have almost no control over the volume or the tone if I'm back here. I want to be on the edge of the keys. Okay? And in order to do this, I'm going to have to shift my hand a little bit, because when I want to play on the edge of the keys, it's not physically possible for me to do that if my hand is just in its natural position following my anatomy. So instead of jumping up and just letting my fingers go where they go, or instead of jumping up and playing towards the backs of the keys, what I'm going to do is try to play on the edge. And this means that I'm likely going to have to move my wrist a little bit. Notice what happens when I start to move my wrist. My pinky can reach farther and my thumb can also reach farther. So for example, when I come up to play this G and E flat, if I were to just play them where my hand lands, notice that the E flat is way back here, the G is way over here. I want to be on the edge. So what can I do? Watch my wrist. I'm going to move it to account for that longer finger. Okay, I'm going to pull that finger back and keep that finger as stretched out as I can. So when I come up, my wrist position is over here, not over here like it was before, over here. So I can reach that, and then that sets me up to be on the edge of the keys if I move my wrist a little bit more towards my thumb so my thumb can reach that note. So notice how much wrist movement is involved here. Especially there. Notice how I swung my thumb up so I could get to the edge of the keys, and when I swing my thumb up, what happens is it also allows me to bring these fingers out to the edge of the keys. Whereas if I were to just try to play that chord with my hand with its natural anatomy, I would end up like this. Again, that's not ideal. We want to be on the edge of the keys. So to play on the edge of the keys, you're going to have to use your wrist to help move your fingers to account for the lengths so that you can be on the edge of the keys. A pro tip here is to double check your fingering. The fingering can help you or hinder you here, and you always want to make sure that you're using proper fingering. Fingering is one of the things we work on the most in Casual to Confident Piano Player. I help members pick the correct fingering for all of their pieces. They can post in the community and get instant feedback about their fingering so they can make sure that they're setting themselves up for success with all sorts of technique related things, but especially with chords. If you haven't heard of Casual to Confident Piano Player, make sure to check out the site. It's ashleyjyoung.com/piano member. You can read all about it there, and you can join the wait list for next time enrollment opens. It only opens twice a year. Mistake number 2 is sliding to find chords. As is often the case with chords, the chords aren't usually going to be conveniently located right next to each other. Notice how far away this note is from the next chord. And all of the chords are moving around. They're not in convenient positions where they're right next to each other. And this is often the case. So a lot of times what people do is they try to slide to reach the chord. So they play the first note, and then to reach the next chord, they're going to slide against the keys. And it's like there's this fear of leaving the keys. And I totally understand that, because we don't want to leave the keys. It's scary to leave the keys. But this is going to keep you really slow, and it's also going to keep you guessing on where your chords are. What you actually need to do for success with chords is leave the keys and make an arc in the air.
You can think about physics. If I wanted to shoot a cannonball from this E flat to this E flat, I wouldn't stand on this E flat and roll the cannonball across the keys, right? I would get the cannon in position, I would aim, I would probably measure the distance, cut it in half, find my arc, and that's how high I would need that cannonball to go in order to reach the destination. And the same is true with chords. I need to leave and actually make an arc in order to reach those chords. So when I'm playing, notice that I'm not sliding across the keys. You can see how much distance I'm getting. Look, my hand is actually gonna come all the way up to this like fall board on the piano. And then I'm coming up to reach the E flat, up, up, up. It's like a cat pouncing. It's not something rolling across the keys. So you need to actually make an arc. And I have another video where I talk all about this. It's how to do jumps on the piano. I will link that in the description below so that you can figure out exactly how to measure the distance, how to create your arc, and how to practice it so that you nail it every single time.
Mistake number 3 is looking at chords as individual notes. This slows you down for a few reasons. First of all, chords are patterns, and they are patterns that repeat very, very often. Let's take, for example, a C major chord. The notes of a C major chord are always C, E, and G. It doesn't matter what order you see them in, and it doesn't matter how many times the notes of that chord repeat. C, E, and G is always a C chord. And if you know that, every single time you see C, E, and G together, you can just lump those notes together as a C major chord, and you're going to remember it. You're going to start to recognize it without looking at the individual notes. But a lot of people stay stuck in this process of looking at every single individual note of a chord, and this slows you down significantly. It's kind of like if you wanted to read Shakespeare, and instead of memorizing some of the most common words like the, and, you just were always sounding out every word letter by letter. It would be really slow, and it would take you years and years to get to the point that you could fluently read Shakespeare. The same is true with music. If you get stuck reading note by note by note, you're never going to be able to read those pieces that have many, many chords in them. Now, the way that you can fix this mistake is by working to memorize your chords. And I recommend doing this for just a couple of minutes every single practice session. It's amazing how much you can memorize if you just consistently work on something. This isn't about spending 6 hours trying to memorize all of the chords in one setting. It's about consistently memorizing a couple of chords during each practice session. I have several videos about this where you're going to learn even more strategies on exactly how to memorize the chords. I'm going to link one in the description that's how to memorize all of your major and minor chords, because that's a great place to start. I also have a free PDF that gives you the formula for all of the major and minor chords. That's also going to be in the description. And lastly, if you want to know more about patterns in music beyond just chords, because music is all patterns, it's chords, it's rhythm patterns, it's key signature patterns, it's all sorts of patterns. If you want to know more about how to memorize patterns and how to use those patterns in your sight reading to sight read with more freedom and flow, you're definitely not going to want to miss the free sight reading workshop that I taught called Speed Reader. I'm also going to link that in the description below as well. You can grab all of those links I just mentioned in the description and also right here on the end screen. Happy practicing.